That night, under the glow of chandeliers dripping with diamonds, laughter echoed through the grand ballroom of the Garnet estate. It was a celebration for the elite. The powerful. The ruthless. Men in tailored tuxedos raised glasses of vintage champagne. Women in custom haute couture gowns whispered behind pearl-covered hands. The entire room sparkled with power, money, and silent cruelty. And then there was her. Alina stood quietly in the far corner, barely breathing, balancing a tray of drinks. Her black uniform was ironed but cheap. Her shoes pinched her feet. Her presence. Invisible. To them, she was nothing more than a shadow, a waitress hired by the hour. But fate, it seems, doesn't care about social class. Because when Alina turned, her elbow accidentally caught a full glass of red wine, sending it flying straight into the pristine white gown of Celeste Garnet, the only daughter of Richard Garnet, CEO of the trillion-dollar Garnet Holdings empire. The room froze. Celeste gasped, looking down at the stain spreading like blood across her designer dress. Then she looked up and saw her. "You stupid piece of trash," she hissed, eyes wide with fury. Then, without hesitation, slap. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Everyone turned. Alina stood there, cheeks burning red, her tray now on the floor, glasses shattered around her feet. Celeste took a step closer, her voice dripping venom. "Who let someone like you in here? Do you even know what this place is?" Alina didn't speak. Her lips trembled. Her eyes welled up. But she didn't cry. Not yet. The guests watched in amusement, like a pack of wolves sniffing blood. Someone started filming. Others laughed quietly. "She's not even worth a lawsuit," one woman whispered. "She probably snuck in to steal something," another muttered. Security arrived moments later and grabbed Alina by the arms. She didn't resist. She was thrown out into the cold rain. Onto the mud-covered driveway. The gates closed behind her with a heavy metallic slam. As if sealing her away from a world she never belonged to. Soaked, humiliated, heart-pounding. Alina stood up slowly, her hands clenched into fists. Her breath came out in clouds of fog. But her eyes, there was something in them now. Not just pain. Something buried. Something dangerous. Because what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that the girl they just humiliated and discarded like garbage was the missing daughter of the Garnet family. And she had come back. Rain kept falling as Alina trudged through the dark streets, her soaked shoes slapping against the pavement. Every step echoed with the humiliation she had just suffered. Her cheek still stung from Celeste's slap. Her pride shattered. She didn't cry. Not on the outside. But inside, something cracked. She reached the back alley of the cheap apartment building she called home. The stairs creaked under her weight. Room 3B. A small, damp space she rented weekly with cash. No name on the mailbox. No photos on the wall. Just silence. She pulled the only photo she owned from under her mattress. A baby picture, slightly faded, with the name EL scribbled on the back in rushed handwriting. It was all she had from her past. No real memories of her parents. Just foster homes, name changes, and temporary addresses. But this week, something had started to shift. Little things. Strange things. 3 days ago, a man in a luxury car had followed her from the bookstore. Yesterday, a stranger in a suit handed her a business card, blank, except for the name L. Sterling Confidential Research. And now tonight, Celeste Garnet had looked at her with more than just disgust. There had been a flicker of something else. Recognition. Why? Alina turned the photo over again. EL. That's all it said. But Garnet Holdings. The name kept echoing in her head. Her phone buzzed. A text. "We need to talk. It's about your real family. Tomorrow. 11 a.m., Café Rue. Sterling." She stared at the screen. My real family. Teacup with handle the next morning, Café Rue. The cafe was quiet, almost too quiet. Alina stepped inside, her hair still damp from a morning shower, dressed in her cleanest thrift store outfit. A man in his 40s sat at the far table. Clean suit. Military posture. He looked like someone who hadn't smiled in years. "Miss Alina," he said as she approached. Or should I say, Miss Evelyn Garnett. Her breath caught. "What did you just say?" He placed a folder on the table. Thick. Heavy. Confidential stamps on every page. "You were adopted illegally. 22 years ago. No paper trail. No DNA entry in the system. But that changed when you bled at the party." Alina stared at him, confused. "The wine glass. The cut on your hand," he explained. "Security collected the glass. Someone ran it through a lab, don't ask who, and it matched the Garnett genetic profile." Her hands began to shake. "This is insane." He slid the photo she'd hidden under her mattress across the table. "We've been watching you." Quietly. There was a child missing from the Garnett family estate 2 decades ago. A cover-up. The matriarch claimed the child drowned. But there was never a body. And that child's name was Evelyn. Alina's, or rather, Evelyn's, mind spun. Why? Why would they hide me? That's what you need to find out. He leaned forward, eyes locked onto hers. But be careful. Someone wanted you gone. Someone might still want you dead. Back at her apartment, Evelyn sat in silence, the folder clutched to her chest. The truth felt heavier than any humiliation she'd faced. Suddenly, the pieces of her past began to float to the surface. A lullaby she remembered but never understood. The scar on her wrist. The deep fear of swimming she could never explain. Everything pointed to one chilling possibility. She didn't disappear by accident. Someone in the Garnett family made sure she vanished. And now she was back. But not as a servant. Not as a victim. As the rightful heiress. And she was going to make them pay. 2 weeks later. A luxury black sedan pulled into the circular driveway of the Garnett estate. Security stood straighter. The maids whispered behind the drapes. The butler adjusted his tie and opened the massive wooden doors. Out stepped a woman in a tailored black pantsuit. Her makeup was flawless, her walk calm and calculated. Not a hint of hesitation. No one recognized her. And that's exactly what she wanted. "Miss Lancaster, welcome," the butler said with a bow. "We've been expecting you." "Thank you," Evelyn replied coolly, using the alias Sterling had arranged for her, Evelyn Lancaster, a strategic consultant from Europe. Fluent in lies. Backed by forged credentials. And a face none of them would dare question. Inside, the mansion was just as she remembered in her fragmented dreams, golden staircases, portraits too grand, a perfume of old money and rotting secrets. Celeste descended the staircase like a queen on her throne. She didn't recognize her. Not without the waitress uniform. Not without the humiliation. "Miss Lancaster," Celeste smiled thinly. "So glad you could join us. I hear your work in corporate recovery is legendary." Evelyn returned the smile, eyes unreadable. "You could say I have a gift for exposing what's been buried." Detective ## dangerous games. Over the next few days, Evelyn roamed the halls freely, analyzing every member of the Garnett family. Richard Garnett, the CEO, charming in public, cold behind closed doors. Kept locked drawers in his study. Made late-night calls that never showed up on billing records. Celeste, the heir apparent, spoiled, insecure, cruel when threatened. She'd built her entire image on being the only child. Eleanor Garnett, the matriarch, kept to herself. Rarely smiled. Always watching. Especially when Evelyn entered a room. Every conversation Evelyn had was a chess move. Every compliment she gave was calculated. Every smile a mask. But then, the house started talking back. Late one night, Evelyn heard footsteps outside her guest room. She pretended to sleep. A shadow stood at her door. Just breathing. Watching. Then left. The next morning, someone had gone through her things. Nothing was taken. But the photo of baby El she kept in her notebook had a new corner torn off. A warning. Left pointing magnifying glass. The first proof. Evelyn had one goal, proof that she was Evelyn Garnett, the daughter who was lost. But Garnett Holdings had buried that truth well. Until she found it. While pretending to assist Richard with old financial files, she unlocked a drawer beneath his desk using a coppered key. Inside, documents. A nanny's journal. Birth certificates. A missing persons report never filed with the police. And one old photo. A baby girl, no more than 1 year old. She was wearing the same bracelet Evelyn had worn since she was found in foster care, engraved with the letters. E.g. Evelyn's hands shook. It was her. It was real. Before she could take the documents, she heard footsteps. She slid everything back, locked the drawer, and spun around just as Celeste walked in. "You know, my father doesn't usually let outsiders into his office," Celeste said, narrowing her eyes. Evelyn smiled sweetly. "I suppose he makes exceptions for people who aren't intimidated by him." Celeste didn't respond. But her eyes were full of ice. And Evelyn knew Celeste was starting to suspect. Candle a mother's warning. That night, Evelyn stood on the second-floor balcony, staring into the dark gardens. That's when she heard the voice. "You shouldn't have come back." She turned. Eleanor Garnett stood behind her in a black silk robe, holding a teacup with hands too still. Evelyn looked her straight in the eyes. "I've only come to uncover the truth." The old woman stepped closer, studying her. "I thought I'd never see you again. You look just like her, your real mother." Evelyn froze. "You remember?" "I never forgot," Eleanor whispered. "But you must understand. If the others find out who you are, especially Richard, they'll destroy you. Again." "Then why haven't you said anything?" Eleanor looked past her into the night. "Because protecting you meant pretending you were dead. And sometimes, pretending is the only way to survive in this house." But Evelyn wasn't here to survive. She was here to reclaim everything. Her name. Her identity. Her power. And someone in this mansion was about to lose it all. The Garnett family's annual charity gala was the event of the season, where celebrities, investors, and international press came not just to give, but to gawk at the untouchables of society. Cameras flashed. The media buzzed. Fashion bloggers fawned over Celeste's custom gown imported from Milan. But all eyes eventually drifted to the woman in the crimson evening dress with hair pinned like royalty, posture calm and lethal. Evelyn Lancaster, or as the world was about to learn, Evelyn Garnett. The air inside the marble ballroom was electric. Behind her poised smile, Evelyn's heart pounded. Tonight wasn't just another performance. Tonight, she had a plan. And Sterling was helping execute it from the shadows. Somewhere in the gala crowd, his team had already planted the final piece of proof, a DNA test result, pulled from the wine glass Celeste shattered weeks ago. And that test would be delivered publicly. The announcement. Just before the auction segment began, the event host took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we move to tonight's main event, the Garnett family has a special announcement to make. One that will change everything we thought we knew." The crowd quieted. Richard Garnett, always composed, gave a confused glance to his assistant. He hadn't authorized any announcement. That's when Evelyn stepped onto the stage. Gasps. Whispers. Cameras. Celeste stiffened. Eleanor's teacup nearly slipped from her hand. Evelyn's voice was calm, amplified across the ballroom. "My name is Evelyn Lancaster, but that was never the name I was born with. 22 years ago, a child disappeared from the Garnett estate. The child was declared drowned. But there was no body. Only a lie. One built to protect reputations and bury the truth." She held up a small envelope. "A truth that's now impossible to hide." She turned to Richard. "Shall I read it? Or will you?" He stepped forward, voice low. "What game are you playing?" "No game," Evelyn replied, eyes burning. "Just justice." She opened the envelope and read. DNA sample #0047 belongs to Evelyn Garnett. Genetic match 99.998% with subject Richard Garnett, biological father. The ballroom exploded in chaos. Explosion symbol aftermath and collapse. Richard's face turned to stone. His jaw clenched. He stepped back from the spotlight as if trying to physically retreat from the truth. Celeste stood frozen, her world tilting violently beneath her heels. "She's lying," Celeste shouted. "This is staged. You're nothing but a manipulative thief." Evelyn turned to her slowly. "You slapped me. Called me garbage. Stripped me of dignity in front of strangers. But the truth is you were always afraid of losing what was never fully yours." Celeste lunged forward, but Eleanor stepped between them, her frail voice cutting through the noise. "She's telling the truth," the matriarch said. "I knew it the moment I saw her. She has her mother's eyes." More gasps. Reporters rushed forward, microphones extended. Investors began to whisper nervously. This wasn't just a family matter now, Garnett Holdings' entire board structure was under threat. Richard tried to regain control. "This changes nothing. I built this empire. She is not ready." "You left me to rot in a system that broke me," Evelyn interrupted. "But I survived it. I bled for it. And now I'm stronger than any daughter you could have groomed with silver spoons and fake smiles." Then, with chilling grace, she stepped down from the stage and walked straight through the crowd, her path parting the sea of elite like a queen claiming her throne. The fall of Celeste. Backstage, Celeste cornered her father. Tears streamed down her face, not of sadness, but pure rage. "You said she was dead. You told me there was no other heir." Richard didn't respond. She screamed, "You ruined me. She ruined me." But it wasn't Evelyn that had done it. It was the lie. The years of pretending the past would never return. And now, Celeste had nothing left to hide behind. Fire a new era. 2 days later, Evelyn stood in the boardroom of Garnett Holdings. Richard was absent. Rumor had it, he'd been quietly removed from interim leadership, pending internal investigations. Evelyn placed her hands on the cool glass of the conference table and addressed the board. "I'm not here to beg for what's mine. I'm here to rebuild this legacy with truth, not secrets. With honor, not entitlement. You can stand with me. Or be part of what collapses next." No one spoke. But one by one, they nodded. The girl they had once thrown out into the rain was now the woman standing in the storm and holding the lightning. 3 days had passed since the gala. Evelyn had been officially recognized by the media and the legal system as Evelyn Garnett, rightful heir to the Garnett fortune. But power had never been her true goal. Truth was. And that final piece still lingered in shadows. Who took her? Who decided she should disappear, never to be found? She knew it wasn't her father. Richard Garnett was cruel, strategic, emotionally void, but sloppy. That kind of disappearance required calculation. Control. Cold precision. Someone who knew the family. Knew how to cover a scandal. And so, Evelyn returned once more to the only person who had always been one step ahead. Eleanor Garnett. Candle hashed the confrontation. The old woman sat in the solarium, sipping her tea with quiet elegance. The same way she had done for decades, never raising her voice, never cracking her porcelain mask. Evelyn stepped inside, her voice steady. "I need the whole truth." Eleanor didn't flinch. "Who took me? Why did I vanish without a trace?" The silence between them was thick as fog. Then, Eleanor placed her cup down, folded her hands, and said, "It was me." The words hit harder than any slap Celeste had ever thrown. Evelyn stood frozen. "What?" "You were never supposed to be born," Eleanor said softly. "Your mother, my son's mistress, was a mistake. A reckless affair. She threatened to expose everything. She said she'd tell the media. That you were his child. That Richard would leave his wife. You erased me because I was inconvenient." Eleanor's eyes glistened. "Because you were a threat to the legacy I spent a lifetime building." I was a child, Evelyn whispered. A baby. I paid a woman to take you, Eleanor confessed. Leave you at a church. You weren't supposed to survive the system. But you did. Broken heart, betrayal, burning. Evelyn's knees nearly buckled. You let your own blood rot in a foster home just to protect your image. Eleanor stood now too, slower than before, but taller somehow in her guilt. I did what I thought was necessary. To protect the family. But seeing you now, maybe you're what this family always needed. Evelyn's voice cracked as she said. You don't get to rewrite history just because you're afraid of dying alone. She turned her back. The air was cold. Her hands were trembling. Behind her, Eleanor whispered. I never wanted you dead. I just wanted you gone. Evelyn didn't look back. The public reckoning. Evelyn didn't stay silent. She went public. An exclusive interview. A confession to the world. The true story of the Garnet Empire's cover-up. And she didn't just stop there. She established the Garnet Foundation for Forgotten Children for every orphan, every foster child like her who had once been treated like a stain on society. Investors applauded. Public opinion swung. And within a week, Evelyn Garnet was named the new CEO of Garnet Holdings. Richard. Disgraced and retired. Celeste. Fled to Europe under a fog of scandal. Eleanor. Silenced by shame, watching the empire fall into the hands of the girl she tried to erase. Sunrise, the final walk. On the morning of her first board meeting as CEO, Evelyn walked alone into the estate gardens. No staff. No security. Just the scent of lavender and memories. She reached the edge of the reflecting pool and looked down. There, in the water's surface, she saw not a waitress, not an orphan, not even a victim. She saw a woman born from fire, forged by abandonment, sharpened by survival. And now, crowned by truth. Her reflection stared back, no longer broken, but whole. Evelyn whispered into the wind. You tried to bury me. But all you did was plant a seed. And the empire she would grow from that seed would be built on everything they once tried to destroy.